Hello there, TAs. I'm going to talk to you today about Labs 12 and 13. We'll talk about Lab 12 first. Most of the things in this activity are mostly just tying what we've learned all semester long in both the lecture and the lab to the ideas of thunderstorms, tornadoes, and hurricanes. The first question or two are not really all that hard. If I switch over here to this question that's about, they have a map like this, and the idea is they're supposed to tell us something about why are there so many thunderstorms over Florida. Hopefully they'll connect this to something that they learned in the class. Let me see if I can kind of draw you guys a picture here. Like if this is the Gulf of Mexico, here's Florida, and here's the Atlantic Ocean. As I explained in the video for the students, one of the important things that happens along a coastline is the presence of a sea breeze, which blows from the ocean towards the land. And then over Florida, because Florida is a peninsula, that means that there's a convergence at the surface. And that's one of the ways in which the students know that you can get rising motion. And so the reason why you get all these thunderstorms over Florida is primarily because of the shape of the land. It's a peninsula. So you get a convergence of sea breezes. It helps, of course, that that's warm, moist air as well. Anyway, so yeah, there's lots of potential for partial credit on that one. If I switch over here, I left in some fairly tricky questions here. Like number 5, recall that updrafts in the thunderstorm result in moist adiabatic cooling. How is energy released in the cloud in this process? This is about, again, it's kind of just a review, but basically they're asking about latent heat release, right? As the updraft of the thunderstorm occurs, we are having water vapor condensing into liquid water droplets. This releases latent heat, which keeps the air from cooling as much as it would otherwise. Remember, as it rises, it would have been cooling at the dry adiabatic lapse rate, but now it's cooling at the moist adiabatic lapse rate, which is a much lower number. For number 6 here, air drawn into a thunderstorm from outside is usually cooler than the air within the thunderstorm cumulus cloud. Explain what effect that has on vertical motion. Both question 6 and question 7 are really questions about the topic of entrainment. And now, I talk about that a lot in my lecture. I talk about it in the video lecture that they get before this class. Entrainment is this idea that, like, you know, air parcels are just an idea. Air mixes in with that volume of air from the outside. And so if you have a warm, moist air parcel, it's warmer and moister than the air around it, but air around it keeps mixing into it, which is going to make it, in the case of question 6, it's going to make it cooler because you're mixing cooler air into our warm, moist air parcel, and that will make the air parcel less buoyant. It's also drier, so there's going to be evaporation. As you mix dry air into your moist air parcel, you're going to have the air parcel become subsaturated. You're going to start evaporating cloud drops and raindrops, all of which is a cooling process, which was bad for the buoyancy. So that's the kind of things that I'm looking for there on those. I don't know why the lab manual isn't on question 6 and 7 actually using the vocabulary entrainment. For number 8 here, we're throwing that one out. All right, let me just see here. If I switch to the next page here. Explain how thunderstorm downdrafts can trigger the development of new thunderstorm cells. This is that business of outflow. Remember, when the downdraft hits the ground, it starts spreading out. It's got no place to go but out around the thunderstorm. And that acts like a little cold front. I mean, this is just wedging little air, any air mass around the thunderstorm then gets lifted up, which can be enough lifting to produce more thunderstorms on the periphery of the outflow boundary. We're throwing out number 10. Number 11 is a pretty straightforward exercise in just finding a front again and labeling air masses, something they've done now before. And we are skipping question 12. Let me just show you something on question 13. This is on page 156. Did I go past it? There we go. Okay, so there is this data here that they are using, and they have plotted it on the form of these temperature soundings. Now, what the sounding, remember, has on here is a solid gray line is actually the environment's temperature as the weather balloon launched. And this dashed line that's on here is the dew point as the balloon flew. It's kind of hard to draw dashed lines on the touchpad here. So on both of these curves here, we can see I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. You can see both the temperature and the dew point, or the moisture, as the balloon was flying upward. Any place where the dew point is far from the temperature profile, like there's a big difference between the temperature and the dew point, that would be a good indication that the air is very dry, right? The dew point depression, the difference between the temperature and the dew point is very large. In the contrast down here, like at this layer, notice how the temperature and the dew point curves are practically on top of each other. That is an indication that that layer is very moist. This solid curve that's on here that's black is the environment, is the parcel. This is the temperature of air parcel. If you took an air parcel at the surface and you lifted it, first dry adiabatically and then moist adiabatically. First dry adiabatically and then moist adiabatically. That's interesting, but I don't think actually in this particular activity they do anything with that. Okay. I think that is the end of what they do in the tornadoes lecture. I'm going to give you the lectures, lab 13 after the break.